Thanks for tuning in. This is Talking Hardcore, and today we are getting back to the old school episodes.
Yeah.
Ghosts of the Ostfront. Scott, tell us what that is.
We are doing the entire series on the Ghosts of the Ostfront. This is the Eastern campaign for the Nazi Party in the Second Reich. I'm sorry, the Third Reich. And
That's so
sorry.
good.
I
No,
thought
no,
Matt
no.
was laughing.
You got to talk the whole way like that. That's so
I do not
good.
have this problem. I can do this all day. It's fine. Don't
damn.
worry.
You really should be a voice actor. This is stupid. You know how many World War II video games you would be great at?
It's the Third
Where
Reich.
like the soldier that gets hit and like they got to have little voices for all that stuff.
Ow, my eye.
But like, yeah, exactly. But now it's probably all AI. But like you'd be good at that. Okay. All right. So
Throw the grenade.
So Ghost of the Ostfront is an old school episode. Came out, what, 12 years ago?
No idea.
I think it's 2011.
Yeah, so 14 years ago. And it is a, what, 5-part episode or 5-part series, Matt? 4-part series detailing the Eastern Front, as Scott said, the Eastern Front of World War II. And it is one of the best series of hardcore history.
It's very crazy.
I mean, don't you think it's one of the best?
2009.
So it's the first real long one he does. Like Punic Wars was 3 parts. This is intense and it is awesome. And man, was that front effed up.
It's very crazy when you look at the numbers.
Right. Okay, so let's start with Matt. What did you like best about Ghost of the Ostfront?
So, Ghost of the Ostfront was my introduction to hardcore history.
Ooh.
My brother said,
Pocket
"Hey,
cherry."
Yes, it did. Yeah, and hard. Rode hard and put away wet.
Jesus.
My brother sent me this thing. He was like, "Hey, you got to check out this podcast," and I checked it out. And Ghost of the Ostfront was the most recent series, so I just started with number 1. Changed my life. It absolutely changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
The first words I ever heard from hardcore history were, "What is a monument?" It's the best.
Yeah.
Remains my favorite to this day. I listened to it many, many, many times. I started listening to it again for this recording. I was like, I don't need to do this. I have this memorized.
Right.
So I was already into like the Second World War at the time, very much like the American side of things, the Allied side of things. But this turned me on to the incredible other side of things, which is very, very, very important. If you are someone who is into the history of the Second World War and you are not aware of the, reasonably unaware of the very much intentionally obscured other side of this thing, go fill in your knowledge. It is the rest of the world at that time, and it's very important to know.
Yeah.
Listening to this series, like, this delves me into the other side. It put me on this whole new path, and it's basically all I read about the Second World War now, and I've just found so much more material on it. I want to share some media towards the end of this thing, or I make some recommendations. But
for sure.
But books. There's the book Barbarossa. Operation Barbarossa. There's just all the things around that operation, all the things about the things that happened in that time, like Bloodlands by Dr. Timothy Snyder. Like he writes about this front as part of his greater scope of his work in that book. I went as far as like looking into the Russian like collegiate archives or the Russian state archives where they keep the actual records of the numbers and the actual like media, the photographs and everything in the film reels from that time. But you have to be like a college student in Russia to access that. Like I've gone as deep as you can go as a civilian in America, pretty much. You know what I mean?
Wow.
As a fan of history, it's just so fascinating to me. And what to sum up to answer your question, George, what fascinates me most about this series, it really illustrates how human civilization just absolutely broke down in a large region of the world.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Scott?
I really like the details that Dan gets into in Ghost of the Ostfront. Especially like the early start of the war, the beginning phases, and like how the Germans were surprised that the Russians had effective armor and technology. They didn't have a lot of it, but they did have some effective armor and technology. How the Russians were still using, in some cases, cavalry charges. And basically they were still on the World War I mindset of, quantity has a quality of its own. And then, just to think about like the mass casualties, 300,000 troops, like I just can't even fathom the numbers. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
The entire war makes no sense. I mean, it just 300,000 casualties. Well, I mean, if you think about it, that's what, 6 decent sized football stadiums full of people. I mean, like, it's just ridiculous.
And then it's like almost everything we lost in every war but the Civil War until then as Americans, and that was like a battle.
Yeah. But Dan talks about that too, where we thought the Battle of the Bulge was this, or we learned that the Battle of the Bulge is this huge battle. But then between the Germans and the Russians, that was a small battle compared to what the hell they were doing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's insane.
Absolutely,
thousands of tanks going up head to head. Like, it's just. Like I said, you just cannot fathom the numbers and then just the sheer destruction.
It is so hard to wrap your mind around the scale.
Yeah, it's monstrous.
That's a great point. For me, why this series is so crucial is kind of, Matt touched on it a bit, but before I listened to this series, I had no clue the details on the Eastern Front. Like, the basics, Operation Barbarossa, the surprise attack, that kind of stuff, right? But man, in Leningrad, Stalingrad, like the very broad strokes.
Yeah.
But just how absolutely horrific these two parties got with each other. Dan does a great job of putting that in context.
And there's a couple things that I every time I listen to it, and I just re-listened to all 4 of them, was how, and you look at these things, like a lot of people don't remember that the Finns were on the side of the Nazi part, the Nazis, Germany. They also, and Dan kind of glosses over this. He really didn't. He didn't gloss over it. It was just like a footnote where he said, "Oh, when the Germans came, to conquer Ukraine, the Ukrainians were giving them, the traditional greeting of salt and bread
because they hated the Russians."
I understand,
right?
But, I mean, and then they started helping and working with the Nazis at the same time. So,
but then the Germans fucked that up.
Sure, I'm not saying the new boss doesn't mean, just because you have a new boss doesn't mean he's going to be better than the old boss.
Right.
But it's just fascinating to look at things like that. And especially, the Nazis weren't any better, or the German army, whichever one you want to say, weren't any better to the Ukrainians than the Russians were.
Right. So, and if they had actually been the liberators they pretended to be, they probably win that war, that front, at least.
And that's why they couldn't win. That's why Dan says, that's the reason why Dan says, well, it's not the only reason, but it's like the German army of the First World War is like, he thinks it's more dangerous than the one of the Second World War. And it's partially because they weren't restricted by their ideological, being racist, methods, right? They couldn't just go in and conquer a country and seek allies and use them as partisans against the enemy. They had to wipe everybody out, and that turned against them.
They needed, the whole plan was to have the space. So they had to kill millions of Slavs.
Couldn't just take the space and then like, hey, double cross, we're going to starve you to death. They had to do it as they went along, That's what messed them up. Well, and
because the Germans have, even in World War I, the Germans did not understand this. Though, and Dan talks about that. They did not understand that coming down hard on stuff like that oftentimes backfired. And they made that mistake in the First World War. They made that mistake in the Second World War. It's kind of the German temperament. That's just kind of the way they thought about things. Is the leadership there was to any little thing a partisan shoots one of our soldiers, we kill actual citizens. And that's going to make it so you're the only kind of people you're going to conquer at that point are the beaten people. You're going to subdue by force, but it won't last unless you don't have unless you constantly have the force.
Well, there's another part that I think the Germans did learn is, especially with, communists infiltrating the ranks in the First World War, I don't think they wanted to repeat that in the Second World War. And if you look at
So 1 second, pause. I want to clarify. You mean the communists that infiltrated the ranks of the Soviets and the Nazis didn't want to have that happen to them?
No, in the First World War, the German army was starting to be inundated or infected by the communist ideology.
Yeah.
And I don't think they didn't want that again.
Sure.
So you have to maintain hard ranks.
So you kill them all.
So the other reason is, if you look at Operation Barbarossa and the 3-tier attack, or the Trident attack, Hitler didn't want to leave anybody or any troops or any cities or anywhere he could be outflanked. What he wanted to do was destroy absolutely everything. And that's why he had the north and central attacks turn around and take Kiev from the west. Yeah. No, from the east. So anyway, that's why he turned those around, because he didn't want to leave anything behind.
Sure.
And he also wanted to make sure Kiev was taken, which did, in fact, screw him in the end, because then he had to turn everything back around and head towards Moscow.
He would have been much better off leaving actual generals in charge of the strategy.
Sure. But
if he was the kind of guy that could have done that, he might have ever made it to be the Fuhrer.
Or why did he even attack? I mean, well, he's fighting too many people on too many fronts.
But why he attacked when he did, I think there's at least an argument that he attacked. Operation Barbarossa occurred because to delay gave Russia more time to prepare. Yep. And they caught him flat-footed. No, but they were still industrializing more. They were still weaponizing more. Right. So if you waited until those people were ready, okay, then the attack gets a lot harder.
Sure. Stalin had just purged a bunch of his military officers as well, and it would have given him a couple more years to
replace those.
Loyal, competent people in place. Yeah.
Sure. And that ended up costing Stalin a lot at the begining of that.
It did, but he turned it around.
Yeah, because he took a lot of those people out of jail and put them back in charge.
Yeah.
People who had literally been tortured by the regime, and they're like, go fight for your country.
Yep.
Yes, sir. But they weren't fighting for, Stalinist Soviet communism. They were fighting to protect their homeland.
Against.
That's very, very, very powerful. Russians do great when they're protecting right. Russians do great when they're protecting their own land, but you send them into another country. They're not the good track record. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Right. It's interesting.
But, I mean, we got to give them credit, man. The Russians beat the Nazis. The Russians. I mean, they're the ones who took all the oomph out of them. We did. We fought long and hard in the West, and we lost a lot of people, and we fought nobly and well. But without what happened in the East, it would have been mincemeat.
Yeah. Yes, but we also have to put that in context. Part of the reason, the way they were able to do that, is America was supplying them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tremendously.
It was a joint effort. Yep.
Tremendously. Without
absolutely.
America supplying Russia, they don't fight back the Nazis. There's no way.
They just couldn't have. They wouldn't try.
Also, as effectively.
And also,
they would have fought.
But they would have lost, I mean. They would have lost. Without American supplies, they would have lost. I really think there's at least a very strong case for that. And two, if Stalin wasn't so stupid as to make a treaty with Germany to split Poland, then maybe they wouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
And you just give all of Poland to Germany?
No. You say, don't go in there or we'll fight you.
Oh.
You stand up.
But the Russians and the Poles didn't get along either. I mean,
because Stalin wanted half of Poland. He didn't have any problem making a deal with Hitler.
No.
Even though he should have known that Hitler hated the Slavs and wanted to kill them all.
Yeah.
So I read something interesting about this. I forget who was commenting on this. Somebody reputable. So, okay. I think his name's Frank McDonough. He wrote the Hitler Years. I read volume 2 of that recently, and he talked about exactly this subject, and it kind of illuminated what Dan talks about in his series. So Stalin knew that Hitler was a worm, okay? Like, obviously, and the worm would turn. So why did he enter into a peace contract? Because he was a wormy politician himself. And he said that Stalin had two ways of public policy, okay? There was like propaganda for the members of your country, and there was propaganda for foreign leaders, okay? And he thought what he was receiving from Mein Kampf, we're going to attack the East, was a certain kind of propaganda that Hitler was just sending out for a certain reason, that he was like, oh, okay, that's just what people say. He's going to use that for a certain reason.
Sure.
So it played into the lying totalitarian dictator mindset perfectly. He passed it off as like his own form of bullshit.
Right. He failed to see Hitler for what he really was. But it's just important to put that in context, because yes, Stalin was a big factor in defeating Germany and the Nazis. And if he didn't make all those really hard decisions and the bad orders and the hard orders and do all of those things, Germany probably wins World War II.
Especially moving the factories.
But also, if he didn't make the mistakes that he made, Germany wouldn't have been in the position that it was in to make it easier to win World War II. So it's just important. That's all I'm saying, right? Like, Stalin is still, and Dan says his best. This is not a good guy, bad guy. That front is bad guy, bad guy.
Yeah.
And it had to be. It had to be. It had to be. Are we seeing that in the world today? I don't want to call Israel a bad guy. I'm not saying that, but you have a person who viciously attacked like very innocent people and slaughtered and all this kind of stuff. And then you have a country who's willing to bomb hospitals because they are being used as, places like that. So it takes very hard decisions to win under certain circumstances. And I just want to dive into that point.
I don't.
Where he was making these tough decisions, man. Like, there's the aspect of the scale of this war. You know what I mean? There's the aspect of the scale of this war. There's all these things that are fascinating about it. If you're a war nerd, it's the war in the Eastern Front is the greatest war in human history, it's the largest war in human history, all these kind of things. The suffering, the magnitude of the suffering was just multiplied to an inhuman degree.
Absolutely.
Constantly for years. And these guys endured it. Like the Germans who were sent there, they were stuck on the front with no proper clothing, all this kind of stuff. But then the Russians who had to go through those conditions of the war, the inhumane treatment of soldiers that was taking place back then, because Germany was like, they didn't sign the Hague Convention. We're going to treat them with, any proper deference to morality. So that kind of things, the atrocities were being committed. The brutality of their own regime forcing them to these circumstances. But I mean, like, really, like, the power of Stalin behind your orders. You know what I mean? Like, go get them and shut up until you do and die trying. And if you don't, your family's going to jail.
Yeah, was it Order 43 or whatever? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, the insane anger that must have been in you all the time. That's what it took. Because the Nazis were going to win without all that. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
That's what it took.
That's what it took. But part of the reason that's what it took is because he put his country in a position for that to be what it took. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that was it. It's just proper context. That's all. But without the Russians, for sure, Germany wins World War II. Well, not for sure. They at least win all of Europe. Right?
Can you imagine that?
It's terrible. It's terrifying.
So I want to get into something.
1 second. The people nowadays.
Yeah.
There are people nowadays that are very flippant about this, about that idea, and how maybe we would have been better off if Europe was run by the Nazis than if it was run by the people who ended up taking over after World War II. And there are people that make that argument, or at least are flippant about saying it could have been better. It might have been better.
Yeah, because we don't see it.
That is a total fucking stupid idea. Like, based on what was happening in Germany during World War II, it's a disaster for all of humanity if they win that war. Now, you may not like what's happened in Europe since then, but you don't know what the hell would have happened in Europe if Germany won. So don't you pretend like, oh, it probably would have been better is really foolish. And there are people who should know better making that argument, or at least implying that argument. And I don't think that's right.
One thing I wanted to circle back to, Matt, and I don't know if you were insinuating this or not, but I wouldn't really equate Netanyahu and Hamas as bad guy.
Right. I made that acknowledgement.
Okay. All right. I didn't hear that.
Tough decisions. And they're taking the hits. Like Stalin had no Twitter. Twitter wasn't around back then. Sure. You know what I mean? Like
social media, all of it.
You didn't have to hear about it on Fox News. I mean, declare
cell phone cameras and all of that.
Declare Stalin a war criminal. Okay. Who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Stalin.
None of that matters. None of that mattered. He was absolutely in charge of everything, and he did not give a fuck what people thought about him. He just got it done, and it was necessary. Okay, right.
Well,
but nowadays, you have to take the hits from making those hard decisions, man. You have to go into an urban environment and drop buildings and stuff. You know what I mean? That is very, very, very tough.
If you want to actually win, you have to actually fight in the real world and not in the PR world.
And if we look back on those times, we should learn those lessons, man. Like the daily grind of this thing, it's been horrific. And I don't think that all of it has been morally handled. I really don't. And that's not just coming from me. That's coming from military people who are talking about this.
Because it's impossible to do that in war.
War held to scrutiny is always horror.
Right.
Period. Okay, that's what we're seeing playing out in the news nowadays, and we have all the biases against certain people for their, Israel has a lot of baggage, right? You know what I mean? So that's going to play into it. But I mean, the thing that it comes down to is this: we need to learn these lessons from history. That you see it at the end of it. What happened? A bunch of hostages just got released today. You think Hamas wouldn't have done that if they weren't ground into the dirt?
Yeah, no way. Ground into the dirt with no allies and nowhere to turn. That's the only way that happens. Those guys lived in tunnels for 2 freaking years eating a pita a day.
Yeah.
And God knows what else.
Well,
to me, I think Ghost of the Ostfront actually helps put into perspective the current battles going on. Because think about this. What would the Russians or the Germans have done to Hamas?
Probably wouldn't have treated them any different than they treated each other. Oh, you mean you're talking about
if put the Germans in Israel's position?
Oh, right now,
or the Russians when October 7th happened.
So you're talking about 1930s there would have been Germany and
no, I'm saying those combatants with that attitude. What happens?
They would have taken a bunch of villagers out. They would have taken a bunch of villagers out and shot a bunch of innocent people.
No, they would have done. They would have killed them all.
Or they just would have walked through the cities and I mean.
Yeah, they would have killed them all.
The way it's being portrayed in the news and a bunch of it seems like indiscriminate slaughter over there. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I mean?
So that's the problem. You can look at the numbers.
It's the way it's set up. It's the way it's set up. Yeah. Well, at least the freaking Russians were like, hey, you guys get out of this. Actually, that's not true. Stalin held people in his cities too. To make them fight harder and to cause anger against the Nazis. You know what I mean?
Step back.
Yeah, exactly. Not just in the front, out in the field, but in the cities too. He wouldn't let people leave.
The difference is Stalin was not hiding in tunnels under hospitals.
Right, exactly.
The Russian soldiers were out there actually fighting.
When the enemy is embedded into a civilian population, horrible things are going to happen. You know what I mean?
It's very difficult for a combatant when they care more about the enemy's civilians than the enemy does.
That says everything.
How the hell do you fucking fight that without willing?
And we had a guy from the United States Military Academy go over there and report on a bunch of stuff like Hamas is machine gunning its own prisoner or its own refugees, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Absolutely. Dead civilians are a win for Hamas. And also what was I about to say?
Well, let me step in real quick.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So we had the U.S. had the same problems in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right.
I mean, we literally had the same problems. No. Yes, we did.
It wasn't near as bad.
Because we weren't trying to kill everybody.
Yeah, but it wasn't near as bad because Hamas was so entrenched with the tunnels
I got you.
and all of that
I'm
shit.
talking about an adversary that is not going to have a stand-up fight because they know they're not going to win.
Yeah, guerrilla warfare. Fighting a guerrilla warfare is shitty. But what Hamas was doing was they're a death cult.
But it's still guerrilla warfare. It doesn't change.
But it's in a city.
It doesn't matter.
That makes it even harder. That's all.
It's urban guerrilla warfare,
which is the worst.
And they were prepared for it.
Which is the worst.
I remember what I was about to say. So, like, Israel is a very small country. The alternative to an approximation, if not the total form of warfare they've been waging, is sending troops in, house by house, clearing all that kind of stuff. You know how many people they would have lost? Their entire economy would have shut down because they would have lost people. They would have had to rotate people into battle.
Israel?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had to,
if they were going door to door everywhere.
Right.
The
right.
US
it's a whole
Marines
different
did
thing. It's like the state of
It
Washington going to war with Oregon. You know what I mean? Like, it's just totally different, man. There's a lot of factors involved. I'm not giving them a total pass. We are looking at these things. And, like, war held to scrutiny is always horror. So, yeah, that's what we're seeing in the news. And over there in the East, it was absolute horror. It was the worst things that have ever happened in the human history, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Like, over there, you had the Holocaust bound up in it too, plus the worst war in world history.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was happening on a daily basis, and they survived it. They got it done at the end, and it was worth it. It was worth it all. How many people? There's one Russian guy who went on in a unit of like 100 guys, and everyone around him got killed. And he is an old man nowadays, sitting at the family table with all his family, his sons, his daughters, their children, their children's children, right?
Yeah.
With generations of people drinking vodka, going, "We fucking did it."
Not only that, 25 million Russians died.
Yeah, and they'll never really release their full casualty numbers. Out of shame, and in both directions. One, because they were so fucked up, they got so fucked up, and because of the they'll never really release the full report because of the atrocities they committed themselves.
Yeah, how many Russian soldiers did they kill?
Yeah,
the Russians. How many did they kill of their own soldiers?
Oh, that was
But that's what it took.
Yep. If you desert or if you run back, I mean, they have there's scenes like that.
That's what you want to talk about existential warfare. That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, there's scenes like that from Enemy at the Gates. Like, and I'm assuming that's hey, don't come. You better not come back because we'll machine gun you down.
They had the penal battalions that Dan talks about. So I'm just going to drop these pieces of media as we go along as they occur to me. So there's a couple things, a couple movies I can recommend as like documentary level artifacts of this war. Okay, one of them is this called the movie Stalingrad. Okay, it's made in 1993. I believe it's German made, so they actually knew what's going on. It's about an elite group of soldiers, German soldiers, who are called out of like R&R in like Italy or France or something, and they're going to support the troops in Stalingrad during the height of the battle. And they get there, and they're immediately thrown into the warfare. It's street to street. It's just how you read about it. And then one of their guys gets wounded, and they're down in the city. They like show the fighting in the sewers. They show like a female Russian soldier. You know what I mean? Like everything you read about is in this movie. It's really, really, really good. And there's an English dub version of it too. So like one of their buddies gets wounded, and this is so chaotic that he's being like left on a stretcher and he's going to die. And they use force to get preferential treatment for him. And for that, they're prosecuted and convicted and put into a penal battalion. And it shows them out there in the snow fighting tanks, like with their hands, basically with like explosives. And then, you know what I mean? The absolute privation and deprivation of starvation and freezing to death.
Right.
Like it shows you everything, the whole war. It's really, really, really good. It's the best one I've ever seen on Stalingrad.
When one side goes total war, I don't know how the other side can win without doing the same.
No, you can't. Napoleon said it before this to talk about, historical conflicts in that region. He said, "You cannot beat me. I spend 30,000 men a month."
Right.
As a matter of course, I think was the.
And that's when total war really started. When you mobilize someone's entire economy, or you mobilize your entire economy against a competing nation, as opposed to just having, one army march out to the field and strike at another one. And that's something I wanted to talk about too. Stalingrad, greatest battle in world history.
Not my favorite, but it's pretty insane. I'm not one of those guys like you guys that gets super into the battles. For me, what I love most about hardcore history is the stuff where it's the in between the battle stuff. The broad strokes of history is what I find fascinating the most. Whereas I know Scott is a military. He finds the military aspects of that more interesting.
Right. What do you think, Scott?
Well, it's strategy. That's what I find fascinating. Is this is just strategic actions and more. But I mean, what do I think? Well, I mean, what's interesting is the Germans created a lot of their own problems in Stalingrad. So when you bomb the hell out of a city, and Dan mentions this as well, it's great for snipers. And then Dan also talks about how the the middle leadership they were just getting dwindled down. 500 500 officers a week or something we were dying in combat. But I mean, like I said, I'm going to go back to this one. You go back to Enemy at the Gates, which is also about Stalingrad, and sniping at the same time. So it was just very fascinating that the Germans leveling Stalingrad was creating a lot of their problems, with the boots on the ground.
Right.
But my favorite battle of all time. I mean, I guess I don't have a favorite battle of all time, but this is getting out of World War II. But I mean, you look at like Gettysburg, or you look at like Iwo Jima. I mean, things like that are just fascinate me.
Yeah, Gettysburg's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's as an American, that's more fun.
You ever read Killer Angels? It's about
no, I haven't.
Battles and novel. Yeah, it's really great. It's what the movie Gettysburg is based on.
Gotcha.
So Scott, you're more.
I thought it was based on the war and the battle.
Well, it is, and the novel is based on that. Yeah.
I mean, we can even go to the Revolutionary War. I mean,
sure.
Battle for New York. I mean,
yeah, and that's what I wanted to touch on too. Scott, you're in more to the strategic side of things. And you've talked about that with the decisions that were made that allowed, success or failure to happen in the East. And George, you're more about the big picture stuff, like what you're talking about, the economic forces and the partnerships and the administrative decisions and stuff like that is all equally important. So I'll add to this, to all that, I'll add the historical value of these battles, and the way they changed the world of the war itself, like I talked about with the breakdown of human civilization. But as far as battles itself go, Stalingrad occurs to me that it might be the last battle in history that actually held significant historical value in itself. Back in the day, in medieval times and ancient times, you had a nation state, and they would send an army into the field, and who beat the other one determined the fate of an entire empire. Alexander versus Darius, you know what I mean? At the Battle of Gaugamela. Right. That changed the course of history. Stalingrad is the same way. They say it wasn't strategic importance. It was to a certain degree. It's an industrial city, commanded the river, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it had the propaganda value of morale in the name Stalin. You know what I mean? So it was right there. If the Russian, it might have broken the Russian spirit to have lost then, and that would have been significantly altering the course of history had things turned. You know what I mean? Like Dan talks about the boneyards at the beginning of this episode. He's like, that's as far as they got. The boneyards outside of Stalingrad. That's where they were beaten back. What if they weren't? So Second World War is the last time that we went to war to actually change the world. And Stalingrad lasted for 5 months. It was the most insane warfare you could possibly imagine. The kind of thing that would drive men insane on a daily basis. And they were just living inhumanly. They were becoming superhuman on a daily basis. They did that for an extended period of time. And the result of that battle absolutely just might have been the last one in history that altered the course of the world.
For now.
Well,
now.
And I'm curious. I really wonder if Stalingrad had fallen, if it would have actually. I don't think. I mean, they still hadn't taken Moscow.
They had not taken Moscow. That's correct.
So I mean, if Stalingrad did fall, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure that it would have helped the German army or the Nazi army. I don't.
It probably wouldn't have hurt.
No, but I don't think it would have helped them as much as they may have thought. I mean, yeah, then they were on the retreat, but then they were encircled. So they were encircled in Stalingrad.
Right.
So
right.
So Matt,
I really don't. I mean, the Russian army could just have easily have just surrounded Stalingrad after the Germans had moved in. So,
but then they would have been forced to take it the same way that the Russians were or the Germans were, and it would have been bloody as shit if they wanted to
starve them out. That's what they did.
And
anyway.
That's the difference, too. Is the Battle of Stalingrad happened in the streets. Like, the Germans were occupying that city. Moscow, I think, largely happened outside because Hitler diverted all the resources, all the army groups up to, like, go get this other area. Don't go there first. And then it gave the Russians a time to prepare.
Yeah.
So that happened outside. They had time to prepare. In the streets, it was man to man, and that's when the Russian spirit prevailed. And I think that is incredibly important for the morale of that conflict.
Sure. One thing I thought of, Matt, when you were talking about major battles that have influenced history since then, what about China and their civil war after World War II and the communists won?
Wow.
There's probably a battle in there that was really big. I just don't know it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But there's probably,
and they wouldn't let you, and they won't let you know that either.
Well, no, there's people. No, the communists celebrate their victories. They celebrate that. I just don't know. I listened to a podcast with Lex Friedman where he was talking to a historian that was going over a lot of that, and I just don't remember the names of the battles and stuff. You guys would dig into it and probably love it, but that's pretty monumental. Like what happens to the whole world if the Communist Party in China didn't win? Where are we at right now? What happens in the Cold War? All that stuff. Who knows?
What happens with North Korea? What happens with Korea?
Right.
I mean, because if China wasn't communist, they would have never jumped into Korea.
Right.
Or they would have jumped in and they'd have just taken it from the north while we went in through the south.
And then there was pretty big battles, like when we left Vietnam, and then they killed all those people in Cambodia. Right? The communists went on to do exactly what the people who said we need to stop them because this is what they're going to do. They went on to do exactly what they said.
Yeah.
So there's probably battles there that we lost that are pretty monumental in world history. If you think about, 4 or 5 or 10 million Asian people dying because of losing a battle, and then people still living in squalor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know enough about.
That's all I'm saying too. Is I don't know enough either. World War II is so huge, and how could it not be? Yeah. Right? The consequences, the things at stake in World War II were so massive, and on the biggest scale with the biggest armies ever assembled.
Yeah, and mechanized.
And completely mechanized. And just horrific.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
And then the inevitable payback, which was, the comeuppance from how the
Russians.
Yep, from the Russians on the German population.
And I think we do need to talk about that. When the Germans were pushed back and in retreat, and the Russians were pushing forward, the revenge the Russian citizens took on German civilians was pretty horrific. I mean, you want to talk about the difference between what's going on now in Israel and Palestine and what World War II and the Eastern Front. When the Russians got the chance to turn on the people who did the awful shit to them, they responded 100% in kind.
Yeah.
Okay? And people may not like the IDF, but as soon as those hostages were willing to be they were able to get the hostages back, they were willing to stop bombing.
Yeah.
Okay. And October 7th was horrific. I don't know that I would be cool with that. If that was our country, I'd probably be a lot more Russian than I would be Israeli in that camp. Like, man, fuck them all. Like, that's hard to overcome that impulse.
I wanted to talk about that too, the spite. Like, how many people suffered and died because of spite? Like, these people that hated each other so much by the end of this thing that it just ravaged an entire populace. Germany came in and they committed atrocities, and then the Russians came back and they, were rightly possessed of a righteous fury, and they just, the people who suffered under that. It's horror. It's just two clashing ideologies, and it's like Dan tells it, just two guys going at each other.
Well,
and one thing that always stands out to me from the series that Dan illustrated was the revenge diaries that the Russian commissars, the officers, would have the soldiers keep. Say, what am I going to do when I get there? How am I going to take revenge against these people? You know what I mean? Every day, it's just like, I am going to rape and murder this many people. I am going to kill this. That is insane. Try and put that in the context of modern warfare. You would be prosecuted. Like, it's absolutely insane, dude.
But it's pretty easy to think about, because on October 7th, 2023, when the Hamas people went over into Israel, there's recordings of them calling their mom, and literally you can hear them saying, "Mom, I killed 7 Jews. I killed 7 Jews."
You're right. That's not that hard to think about,
dragging
is it?
Dragging the bodies. And this is all on camera.
But the difference is that one side, or the Russians there with the revenge diaries, were literally directly responding to things that had happened to people they knew, their homes, all that kind of stuff. Hamas,
exactly. Nothing like
IDF, that. The IDF is doing a couple things here and there. They are not doing well in that region. They're poking around, expansion, all that kind of stuff. And yes, there's been, like deaths and stuff like that. Nothing even close to on the scale.
Exactly.
It's all propaganda. It's all, I know they grew up with the stories from their father. They're radicalized, and they went out and finally killed some Jews. Like, that's what it is, man. That is even worse. That's even worse.
And that's what I was going to say. But I mean, I wasn't comparing it. I know what you're saying, Matt. I wasn't trying to compare it to the justifications.
No, I know. Yeah.
What I was trying to say is that kind of savagery. We like to think like it's not still around. Like we've beaten those impulses.
Yeah.
But then when shit gets turned loose, there are people, and it's not everybody. That's the thing to remember. There were Russian soldiers who didn't want their comrades or their underlings to act like this. Right? And there were German soldiers the
same way, yeah. Even in leadership.
But there are enough people and enough variations among people that there will be those that relish and glory in the savagery.
Well, and there's also psychopaths that come out to...
Yep. And that's what was going on at the end of World War II. And anybody that wants a little bit more information about this, or wants to hear a story from my family, or my wife's grandmother, we posted a video on this over a year ago, probably a year and a half. It's called Flight from Karavolkovo, and it's about her story as I interviewed her as a refugee fleeing the Russians at 10 years old, and how traumatic that was to her and how crazy things were. And we also have an account by her sister, who was 22 at the time, that we're going to be putting into a podcast soon, that it just puts all that into perspective. And there was a little more information there from the sister than it came from my wife's grandmother, because my wife's grandmother was only 10. Her sister was 22, and she remembers so much more of how horrific it was.
Sure. Yeah. And you know what? I think to expand on that, George, it's not like, it's just like anything now. There's innocent civilians that don't agree or disagree with the war, but have no choice because that's what their country's doing. Even from Nazi Germany to communist Russia to the Soviet Union. I mean, there are just people. It's the same thing when Stalin said, nope, a 40-mile radius around Moscow, go behind the lines, burn all the houses. And even, and the people that were living there. I mean, he burned his own people's homes. Like they didn't have any shelter from, and then the partisans and they made movies about this too, but I think it was Daniel Craig was in one of them.
Yes, he was.
But like the partisans hiding out in the woods, what are they going to do? I mean, you got your own population that's just stuck.
Yeah.
And innocent people unfortunately get caught in the crossfire, and anyway.
Yeah, but one thing that's different about this in more modern situations is in that Douglas Murray wrote a book called Democracies and Death Cults. And in that book, he's talking about the things that actually happened on October 7th. Part of the reason that was able to happen is because Israel let Palestinian citizens come over and work. They come across the border and work. And those citizens collected all kinds of intel and gave it to Hamas. I mean, just all kinds of intel. Like which house on the street has the security guy? Where to strike first? And all kinds of stuff like that. And maybe they didn't have a choice, and maybe they did. But like part of the reason that happened is because Israel was trusting enough of somebody that was supposed to be an innocent civilian.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to what Dan said on some things, under, especially I think it's the end of part 2, under the threat of not just your torture and inevitable death, but your families, your wives, your kids, your immediate family, their torture and inevitable death.
What do you do?
What do you do? I mean,
very hard.
Even, and they did that experiment, it's the same thing. I'm sorry. Like if somebody says, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to torture and kill you, and then torture and kill your wife and daughter in front of you.
No, they do that. Yeah, they do that part first.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, you know what? I don't have a choice. And I kind of, I mean, and you kind of,
so the moral of that story is you need to fight back before it could ever get that far.
Sure.
But if you wait too long, then you don't have that ability.
Well, that's right. Government is supposed to protect your family. That's what you buy into it, pay into it for. And
but also not
hold your family hostage to turn you into a weapon for their own hate, right?
Sure.
So fight the real enemy. You know what I mean? Like, fight the real enemy when it is hard. How do you do that? How do you say, yes, today, on this day, I am going to march with my friends to the Capitol building and literally take out this totalitarian regime that is brutalizing our nation and ruining our reputation internationally and harming our people. But during the course of that action, someone will come to my house and murder my daughter. How do you do that?
Right.
How do you do that?
Well,
yeah. Well, she's 3 years old.
None of it's easy, right? None of it's easy.
That's hard.
And this is situations that humans have been put in forever.
Well,
and that Dan talked about, I think it's a different episode. Yeah, it's the Celtic Holocaust, right? Some things are worth dying for.
Sure.
But what if two things that are both worth dying for are at odds, right? Freedom's worth dying for, and your family's worth dying for. But what if you have to pick which one to die for? That's tough.
Yeah.
Right? And that sucks.
Well,
that's just life. It sucks. Sometimes life just sucks.
And George, you say, try to combat it before it starts or before it gets that bad. Honestly, I don't think anybody like the Gestapo, or the KGB or the FSB or whoever. I mean, I don't think anybody actually knows where that tipping point is.
Sure.
I mean, you look at communist China, people in Hong Kong disappeared during the protests.
Well, yeah.
Jack Ma disappeared for 3 months.
Yeah.
China's Elon Musk disappeared for 3 months. And then because he was talking against the Communist Party, saying, hey, we need to be a little more democratic, a little more westernized. And guess what? Boom. Jack Ma just disappeared.
Right.
Came back, flipped the script.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you, again, how do you know when that's coming? You don't know where. If the federal government, if the U.S. government wanted to right now, they could disappear a whole bunch of people.
Yeah,
If they wanted to.
And there are people that are trying to make that argument that that's what's happening, and I don't agree.
No, I don't agree with that either.
Because we still have a system that prevents them from doing that. And it's not like it couldn't happen. It's just much, much less likely to happen. And that is why you have to hold on to these systems that we have. That is why they are important.
Oh.
Because the very foundations and the freedoms that prevent us from prevent things like that happening to us are in those institutions and in those freedoms. And so we must fix them when they're broken, and we must protect them when they're at a threat. That's what we must do. And it's funny because I think Dan Carlin and I would agree on that what I just said, but we would completely disagree about what the threat is.
Sure. More than likely.
Yeah. But we at least have the same value. Like, what's important.
What's funny is, and then we're kind of getting off topic a little bit. But,
that's what we do.
What I was having this conversation last night, and I was talking about, we talked about the pendulum swinging, and, that's a shout out to Jack here. But, I even said, I don't want the pendulum to swing too far to the right. If we are leaving the left, if the pendulum swung a little too far to the left and we're starting to push back to the center and into the right, I don't want it to go to extremes on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. And his argument was absolutely not. That's when you fight the hardest, to go further. And I just disagree with that.
Well, it just depends on what he means by further.
He didn't expound
That's
on
what I'm
it. He
saying.
Didn't expand on it.
But that all depends, right? Because if further is traditional American conservative values, that's not dangerous.
Wait a minute. Let me rephrase. He did. He was talking about libertarianism. So basically, the government stays out of absolutely everything. Get out of my life unless I need protection or help.
Sure,
and that's it.
But that's never happening.
I know that's never going to happen. But that's what he meant. Is he wanted the pendulum to go all the way to libertarianism?
Yeah, and that's not what people mean when they say far right.
Well, that's
not what they mean. That's just what he was thinking you meant.
That's almost.
But that's not what they mean. It's not though.
Well, I don't want.
That's
my
the point.
My response to him is, I don't want an autocracy, and I don't want to go into totalitarianism.
Right.
I mean, that's what I mean,
and that's what he means too. He doesn't want that either. That's not what libertarianism is. But, and this is Scott's friend who listens to the podcast, Jack. Shout out, Jack. Thanks for listening. Check out the merch. Link in the description. It's just there right now, finally, the culture war is tipping away from the far left. But I don't think you realize how far it has to go before it can even start to be right. It is so far left that right now, even though it feels like the pendulum's swinging, the pendulum can't even see the center yet. Look at all the mainstream. Look at Jimmy Kimmel. Look at all that stuff. How many people do you think actually live in the real world? How many Americans live in the real world right now?
Hold on.
Is it even half?
Oh, God.
Is it even half?
So. No.
Hold on.
I know some of the most highly educated, conscientious, and moral people I've ever met in my whole life currly. You know what I mean? I interact with them on a regular basis.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
And you're self-excluded. No, and while I am learning from them and am often wrong about my opinions in contrast to their own, I am also continually shocked at the level by which they raise the volume, do not engage with primary sources when forming their own opinions, and are possessed of the most radical perspective on current events possible, given the terminology that's being thrown around. It is frightening, and frankly, I think it is more volatile than what I am seeing from the other side. And as a person in the middle, as a moderate nowadays, I feel like the moderate position is the one that is leading from the front and taking the most hits. Mm-hmm. And that is a very uncomfortable position to be in.
And that's something we need to talk about, because you have people that are calling Charlie Kirk far right. Important thought leaders like Ta-Nehisi Coates. That asshat called Charlie Kirk far right. Okay, Charlie Kirk was the moderate. You know what he was trying to do? And he said this, by going to college campuses, what he was trying to do was prevent a revolution.
Yeah.
And anybody who's in favor of a revolution here in America doesn't understand history.
Well,
they don't understand how fucking terrible that would be, how fucking horrible that would be, and what damage it would do to us and the world. It would be catastrophic. And that's why the pendulum still needs to swing way further this way, Scott. And I'm watching it too, because I agree. It's dangerous. But we need to get our institutions back in the middle. Well, our institutions right now are so far left. They're fucked. Harvard is fucked. Yale is fucked. All of our higher education is fucked. NBC is fucked. These things are what keep... If we can't fix that, then we do have to worry about revolution.
Well, the part where it comes to the far right, or what I'm trying to get at, is who's running to the conservative or Republican Party the most? What demographic? Young white men.
By
far.
Yeah, but they're also gaining a lot in black men. Basically every demographic but single women.
Yeah. Okay.
Trump gained in every demographic but single women.
I'm not talking about I'm talking so the issue that, from what I've read and what I've heard from people, is young 18, 19, 20, early 20s,
right,
white men have been ostracized by pretty much the entire left.
And then Charlie Kirk gets shot for going to talk to him.
I understand. Well, not just that. I mean,
to talk to any college students.
Yeah.
And he gets shot for being a moderate.
Correct. But you're what that's doing is fanning the flames,
yes,
of young idealistic men who are tired of being marginalized.
I don't even know if it means idealistic. I mean, it could just be realistic.
Sure, it could be just real. It could be realism. But at the same time, you got to be careful, because those are the minds,
That's why we have to keep doing stuff like what Charlie Kirk was doing.
Sure.
Okay. You don't give up on that because he got shot. You have to go to colleges and you have to change minds. But you don't change them over to the far right perspective. You change them to the let's get back to what made Western civilization great perspective. And that's what Charlie Kirk talked about all the time.
I got you.
And that is what prevents a revolution.
Yeah. And then there are people that are going to use that to their advantage.
Of course. And it's our job as people in this society to call those people out and to say no.
Well, you can only call so much.
You say no.
But it's just like young women. It's very difficult to change their mind on anything because they're looking at it from a different, they're looking at it as, and I hate to say this, they're looking at it as a more selfish and self-centered point of view. In my opinion.
Yeah. Because they're single.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Oh, okay. We should probably get back to Ghost of the Ostfront.
Yeah, sorry.
But that stuff is important to me because think about how World War II started. Okay, what the causes were of that. You had the Russian Revolution at the end of World War I, excuse me. You had the crazy upheaval in Germany after World War I. Yep. You had all of this stuff that led to the horrific shit that happened in the Eastern Front, right? None of that happens without all that other context, without all of that other chaos. That's why we have to be careful now. And you're right, you can't let it go too far the other way. But I'm just pointing out that we're not close to it being in the middle yet. We're just not. There are so many people that just have no clue what's actually happening in the world because the only sources of news they get lie to them. And it's, I hate feeling like this. I hate thinking that, okay, I know the truth and they don't. Because usually when you feel like that, you're wrong, right? Yeah. Usually that's a stupid state of mind to have because you're probably just as wrong as them. But to honest to God, in this situation, that's true. It's true. Like they just have so many lies that they've been fed that they don't actually have a chance to even hear the truth from any of the places that they would trust.
Yeah.
And the only way to fix that is to roll up your sleeves and fix it. And so it seems like Trump's being authoritarian because he's doing all these things with the journalists and in the universities. And it's like, well, you know what? If we don't fix those, we're never going to have a country that can actually all hear the truth.
Yeah, but okay, what you have is the other side who has been in control of those institutions now are acting like they're the victims.
Right. And you know what you do when people do that? You ignore them.
Sure.
You have to.
Well, I mean,
because it's not like he's putting them in gulags. It's not like we're like, okay, round up all these crazy liberals and let's just move them out to Alaska because like that's our Siberia, right? Let's just move them all up in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, like Stalin did with the people that he didn't like. No, we're just saying you can't have federal money then. If you're going to fuck this country up, you can't have federal money. That's pretty low bar. That's not a free speech issue. That's let's enforce the laws that we already have that haven't been enforced.
Sure.
That's what that is.
And that's what a lot of what he's doing.
That's what he's doing.
And a lot of people don't like it.
Sure.
How dare you stop our criminals from being on the street?
How dare you? How dare you do what we've already been doing? And that's what the left does.
No. Anyway.
And the reason that it's important, one second, I'm going to reiterate this and then Matt, you can go. But the reason this is important to talk in this conversation is because these are the times that lead to those times that they had to fight. Germany, before World War I, was a highly educated society.
Yeah.
Nobody would have thought what happened in World War II or in the lead up to World War II would have happened in Germany. That was out of left field, right? Nobody would have thought that. That's why this shit matters now, because we want to make sure that what happened on the Eastern Front doesn't happen ever again.
Well, unfortunately, we're human and we forget things really quick. Give us a generation or two. And
so usually what it takes for us to remember is for shit to get that bad again.
Yeah. And
I'm hoping that maybe people can read a book and remember and learn.
You know, like I
said,
or
watch
George,
a movie.
You can't, the scale, you know, you just can't absorb it. It's just impossible. Yes. I mean, like I said, 300,000 people, you know, 300,000
right, but you don't need to be able to really imagine that to understand how horrific it was.
No,
it took atomic weapons to get Japan to quit. That should be enough to show you, like, okay, that's horrific.
Yeah.
Like it did what? Not just firebombing. That wasn't good enough.
That did more damage than
that wasn't good enough. We had to drop atomic bombs. That's how crazy the things got.
Anyway, what were you going to...
now back to you, Matt.
Were you getting that, Matt?
I think, Scott, what you're saying is people forget. It's not, that's definitely correct. And George, what you're saying about reading a book, that's where it's at. Because books outlive generations, and the people who actually remembered these things are dying. Like, this is the final generation where the people from this conflict will be alive and able to actually tell their stories. It's important to
there's not
write it down
left.
and remember. There's not many of them left, and all of their voices are recorded.
Right.
It's not just that people forget; it's that the actual information and the way we fought and what we fought and why we fought and how we fought is being intentionally misused. Not everything is World War II. You know what I mean? Like not everyone is Hitler. And that is very important. You know,
That's very true.
America has a very severe association with fascism. You know what I mean? And like, you know, not everything fits into that mold. I'm not saying everything doesn't, but like we have to stop being so absolutely severe and associating things with the worst examples of humanity. Now, I'm seeing some concerning things nowadays. I really am. I think that's a whole other conversation. But what I want to say is it's not just about forgetting. It is about, George, to your point, how many people actually live in the real world nowadays? Very few, because they don't have time to engage with a primary source, so they choose not to. They won't even listen to like a podcast because it's conservative or whatever. You know what I mean? To engage with a primary source.
Yeah.
They're having their opinions interpreted for these events interpreted for them, and their opinions are being handed to them on a silver platter so they can engage in a part of a group that they feel is part of the other side of justice. On either side, whatever it is. You know what I mean? I'm highly concerned about that. And I'm in the middle going, but what about this? Listen to this. Read that. Here's what I think. Yeah. And they're like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, why are you engaging with those people? Like, they're the enemy. No, this is what's happening. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I listen to all these people, and it's a very weird place to be. And it's very scary. I am more afraid in the middle as a moderate, or if that's what you want, I guess, call me a moderate fucking liberal or whatever the fuck you want to call me, then I am at the extreme level where I'm like, oh my God, this is literally fascism taking over America and we have to fight it because that's the Nazis. Like, that's a place where you should really be afraid. You know what I mean? That's the most fear in the world. And I am more afraid right now seeing the wacko-ness that's going on either side and the at each other's throatness and the horrible lies and misinterpretation of all these events that are going on. Not completely, but some of it. Because that's fear is where do you we said this a while back on the podcast, man. I know how to come back from fascism. I don't know how to come back from fucking Wackoville, dude. I really don't. How
do we get back to the real world?
I don't understand how the fuck we do that. I don't see it getting any better, and I frankly see it getting worse.
I think it can get better. I think it will.
I think it can get better too. I'm trying. We're trying.
I just hope it gets better before it gets worse.
Well, what we really need to do is people need to start having babies. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that solves a lot of problems.
Well, yeah, because then it makes less Democrats. So it really does solve a lot of problems.
Wow.
Well, Matt, you can laugh. Wait,
but that's honest to God truth. Like, you look at the demographics. It's just getting married and having kids makes you more likely to vote conservative. And right now, I think the Democratic Party needs to burn and start over. We need a new party. I don't think the Democrats are salvageable. But
you think Gavin Newsom's going to be the guy to come in and fix everything?
Right, exactly.
He can't even fix California.
I don't think
that's bad.
It's salvageable.
Wait a minute. They couldn't even put the fire out. Like they didn't even have water to put fires out.
They just caught that guy, didn't they? They just caught the guy. He was
the guy that started it.
Yeah.
Why were the reservoirs empty?
No, I understand that.
Why were the fire hydrants empty?
That's what I'm saying. But beside the point, they're doubling down. And
that's what I see.
They got their ass kicked, and they're doubling down.
Yeah, that's what I see.
They're not going to accept defeat.
So they need to keep losing until somebody else steps up. Then, because we need a yin and a yang. Like, that's how our system works.
We need a reasonably balanced system. Yeah, reasonably balanced.
You need a yin and a yang. You don't want all conservatives, and you don't want all progressives. You need both. But what you need is rational, reasonable people.
We need respect for each other's values and a recognition that a reasonable difference is there's place for that with tolerance in our society. You know
and I see way more of that on the right than on the left right now.
I'll be.
Go ahead, Matt. Say it.
No. I'm going to say I frankly think you're right. I frankly think you're right. Yeah, I don't see a lot of inclusion happening for certain aspects of liberal culture. In fact, shutting down and that kind of stuff. That's very bad, and that's something that's being pushed back against. But I in my position, engaging with both sides, and doing my own homework, I will say that when I am speaking to my progressive liberal friends about these issues, I receive much more hardcore pushback than I do speaking to my moderate conservative friends, you guys, about these issues and stuff like that. Yeah, that's honestly what I see.
I would never in a million years tell you to stop talking to them.
The situation as I see it. That's a practical mechanical breakdown. I'm not going to use labels of the words that people say. That is a mechanical breakdown of the situation as I see it, and I think that's concerning. I think that there's valid points on both sides right now, and I'm coming around on some other things. But as things progress in our government, in our society, like there's things that are concerning me. But like I will say that I see more tolerance for the other perspective in it coming from the right, and that's hard for me to say. I'm gonna tell you. I almost didn't say this, but I just want to tell you an example. And this happened privately. It didn't happen publicly, but it did. Okay, so on the day. Okay, so we have people on the left calling anyone the top-down government fascist, and what does that make people who voted for Trump? Is that supporters of fascism? Is that like, do you get duped? Whatever. What does that make me for talking with you? Fascist sympathizer? That's exclusionary. Right. Okay, that is. I don't feel comfortable engaging with people like that because they look at me like I'm a fucking retard because I'm even listening to people who take this shit seriously and trying to speak with you on an amiable level. Okay,
they would have already canceled you with that last comment.
Yeah.
So
it's okay, Scroll.
Okay. So you have one side calling the other fascist. You know what I mean? And then I'm in that community, right? On the day of Charlie Kirk's memorial, I called for something disparaging him to be taken down because it felt like celebrating his death. It wasn't a primary source. It wasn't, here's what this guy says, look at him saying it. It was C-SPAN covering AOC talking in Congress on the day of his memorial saying, hey, everybody, remember what a piece of shit this guy was?
What an awful thing she said.
I feel for his family and his children, but he was a fucking racist. Basically, that's what it was, okay?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I was just like, can we not today here, please? And it's even in the space reserved for political discourse. Please, just one day, I will fucking debate my ideological opponent into non-existence anytime, but what I won't do is stab them in the back when their back is turned weeping for their fucking family. I will not do that. And I think that if we can't be better than the moment, we've already lost. I think if we can't practice civility to our opponents when it's appropriate to do so, we've already lost. And that is a message to anyone out there who's voting Democrat right now. Fucking check yourself.
Yeah.
For my effort, I asked this person privately to do so. I didn't make a big public thing about it. I was like, hey, man, this feels wrong. You know what the fucking response I received was? Check this out. I look forward to you taking over the morality police when David Duke retires.
Jesus.
From someone on my own side. That's how fucking hot shit is. A failure to adhere to the hardest line possible on a certain issue is an immediate association with the worst of that subject that they have to offer, the worst of humanity. Right. That's how fucking hot shit is.
And
that's coming from the fucking left.
Argument
that's coming from a person on the left who's not a person, not a white person. They have things tied up with racism against them and stuff like that. But still, I don't like being called a fucking white supremacist because I'm calling for civility. That's where we're fucking at as a society.
Right. Well, and that's unfortunately there's a lot of that rhetoric, and that rhetoric is a lot of it widely used and inappropriately used. It's just it doesn't fit context either,
and that's why part of the reason why Charlie Kirk got murdered.
Yeah,
because people like AOC lied about stuff he said. It's just true. Like he wasn't hateful. He was always really polite to people who came to his things and identified as trans, and he tried to give them humanity. But what did the shooter say? It was a threat to his his
continued existence, or
to his lover's continued existence, and it was because he was spreading hate. Those are all lies.
Sorry for having a conversation,
but they're just fucking lies.
Well,
and so not living in the real world has actual consequences. Not living in the real world leads to people dying. Like, that's the problem. And Matt, you were talking about like how they don't engage with primary sources and things like that, and that's very true. But another thing that happens is there's a lot of people out there that just don't even realize that they are not living in the real world. They don't realize that they can't trust the institutions that their dads trusted. They don't know that the whole thing that they're seeing is bullshit. And it's really hard to convince somebody of that. It's very difficult. And what happens is you end up sounding like a fucking crazy person. You end up sounding like one of these crazy conspiracy theorists. But the problem is, I'm not a crazy conspiracy theorist. I tell those crazy conspiracy theorists, hey, maybe you should think about this. That seems a little wacky. All the time. Because it is.
But they don't.
But this is what you sound like when you talk to somebody who grew up and lived in a time when you could just watch Walter Cronkite and think you knew everything that was happening, and then now you say, well, okay, but those are lies. Here's proof. Well, no, it was on the news. It's not lies. And that's the biggest thing that's changed in the last 10 years is Trump calling that out. Well, was able to shift the narrative so more and more people are waking up to that, which is super important.
The biggest change is, I think it's the news not reporting facts.
That's what I'm saying.
And more like spin cycle.
Well, that's part of it. But also, sorry, go ahead.
No. It was nothing. I mean, if you want to go back to Ghosts of the Ostfront, you can go right back to Goebbels. He was doing the same shit. I mean, we really need a free and honest media, and we don't have it because it's all money. It's
not just the money.
Money,
it's ideology.
fame.
It's ideology. Most of the journalists went to the same institutions as most of the congressmen.
Yeah.
And they're all want to be part of the same club.
Yeah.
It's not just it's actually probably less money for a lot of it is they just want to be seen as the cool kids that get along with the politicians who are the popular people. They just want to be able to go to the same dinner parties and not be considered racist. All of that shit. The left discovered magic words that allowed them to get people to shut up for like 40 years. And the first person that pushed back against that was Trump. He's like, you know what? Fuck your magic words. That's all fake news. Because, before Trump started running for president, black people loved him. He wasn't a racist.
A lot of people loved him.
That's right. But I'm just saying.
Even the liberal Hollywood progressive loved him.
Black people weren't all out calling him racist.
No.
Okay, so Trump became racist because he wanted to be a Republican candidate for president.
Yeah.
So, okay, then your words no longer have meaning. You've stripped them of value. And that's part of the way we fix this, is getting more and more people to realize that those magic words that they're using are bullshit. And it's time to start talking to each other and realizing that there is nuance.
I agree. Anyway, that was Ghost of the Ostfront.
Can I wrap it up with some media plugs? I want to shoot some.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
How can we not talk about what's going on now if we're going to talk about Ghost of the Ostfront, though?
Oh, I know, but
and that's partly what we do here that I think is valuable.
I'm glad. I wanted to bring this into contemporary events, man. So
because that's what studying history is important.
Fucking A.
Read a book.
Yeah,
read a book. Ask your grandfather.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, I couldn't even imagine if mine was still alive.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, Matt, fire away with the media. Also, guys, Matt's going to put a list of these books that he's recommending and these primary sources in the Talking Hardcore chat in the Hardcore History Discussion Discord channel. And there'll be a link to that in the description. So in the description of this video, there will be a link to the Discord channel, which will have all the media that Matt's talking about. And also there will be a link to the merch. Check it out.
Merch.
All right, go ahead.
So Dan does a really great job of, like, Scott, like you said, the scale of this is vast. He does a great job of bringing it to a popular audience. And, like, if people want to engage more with, like, a movie, there, you know, I read a lot of these sources, man, and, like, there's a few pieces, like movies, and one of these is a documentary, but, like, there's a few things I would hold up as, like, documentary level media about this, that, you know, if you call this entertaining, you could be more entertained than sitting there and reading a 900-page book. So one of them is the movie Stalingrad that I talked about. It was made in 1983. It's German made. They knew what they went through, and it was an anti-war film by Germany.
And it came out during the Cold War.
1990. Yeah,
was it produced? No, Cold War. 83 was still the Cold War.
He said 1993.
He said 83.
1993. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said 83.
After.
Oh, my bad. Okay, right after the Cold War. Yeah, fascinating time for that to come out.
Absolutely, and it's there is an English dub of it. Another is the 5-part Russian-made film series called Liberation.
Whoa!
Absolutely awesome. It is the Eastern Front. Like, it takes you from the Battle of Kursk all the way to the storming of the Reich Chancellery. It is insane. It's well produced. It's stuff you're only going to see on film in this style, because the Russians ain't releasing that stuff.
Is it a documentary or is it a?
No, it's a movie. It's a movie series. Okay. 5 movies, dude.
Kind of like Band of Brothers, but with Russia.
Right, but they're all like full-length movie episodes, man. Wow. It's insane. Liberation. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Here is a documentary about the Eastern Front. It's insane that this exists. The Unknown War. 20 episodes of a documentary, dude. It is all the footage that you're looking for that you're ever going to find in the Western world of the Eastern Front, with all their cultural stuff going on, all the stuff at home, as well as the war front, man. It is epic, and it's hosted by Burt Lancaster in his later years. It's really good.
Cool.
Yeah, and then there's the book Savage Continent, Europe in the Aftermath of World War II. That I cannot recommend highly enough for anyone who wants to, like, what happened. I talk about the breakdown of human civilization. This is what it looked like. You know what I mean? There was no law. There was no law enforcement. They had, like, factions of mafias going after each other, taking over the roles of law enforcement, and all the reprisals and further mass killings and everything. But plus just civilians wandering the countryside looking for food and shelter. That's what we did. We broke the world. And if I had to close with a lesson, we're never too far away from that. And everything that Scott and George just talked about is how we're going to get there again if we're not careful.
Yes. I just had an idea, guys. Why don't we do a Discord live event where we watch Stalingrad?
Oh, that'd be great.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's really good.
Do that.
I think that'd be fun. All
okay.
right. We'll throw up a thing and see if anybody else is interested in joining us. Otherwise, if it's just the 3 of us on Discord, that's kind of just a circle jerk. I mean, we could just watch it without the Discord then. But yeah, I think that'd be fun. All right, everybody. If you're interested in watching Stalingrad on Discord with us, hit us up on the, again, link in the description to the Hardcore History Discussion channel, Discord channel. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you making it to the end. And remember, Scott's wrong.